So basically, in the last video, we talked about how my dad, the greedy framer, basically what he was doing in 2011 was a sure sign of how things are if they are done, if illegal things are done. And the thing that I can assure the courts are, after the year 2011, my dad was the most patriotic person in Ireland. His entire history after 2011 will show one patriotic group after another, after another, after another. He's gonna join 50 different patriotic groups after 2011 to show how patriotic he is. But that only proves a guilty conscience, because none of these patriotic groups would have been there before the year 2011. Only after the year 2011, clearly showing from facts and evidences that he was definitely found to be doing something in 2011, due to which he took such a drastic change and started joining all these patriotic groups in Ireland, clearly showing a guilty conscience from the start. The facts have to be looked at, and the fact that the thing that main purpose of me talking about 2011 is to show what it looks like if something illegal is done and not just said. So my dad, the greedy framer, in the year 2011, basically what he was doing was mass recruiting people to join terror groups. He was giving sermons on jihad, and he was telling people that they have to go join terror groups because that is part of the religion, basically saying that you should go out and mass murder people. The biggest scary thing about this is the fact that there were about 50 people in each one of those sermons that my dad, the greedy framer, had in 2011, and not one of those 50 people ever disagreed with him, clearly showing from facts and evidences that my dad, the greedy framer, was basically had been doing this for a very long time. All 50 of those people were fully radicalized, and when right before the government decided to tip him off, they handled it really badly. Law enforcement handled it terribly, because they went and they tipped him off, and right before they tipped him off, they sent in a government informant, and that government informant basically stuck out like a sore thumb. I could point to you exactly who the government informant was. On the last day, right before he was tipped off, there was a government informant who went and he sat next to my dad, the greedy framer, and every single time my dad, the greedy framer, would tell people and encourage them to go join terror groups, the government informant would basically just try to twist his words, like how he likes to say, twist my words. He would just twist his words, and basically what would end up happening is he wouldn't let him twist his words. My dad, the greedy framer, would be like, no, wait, let me say this. I know how to say this better. And my dad, the greedy framer, would go back to saying what he was saying, which basically was that everyone should join terror groups and commit mass murder. Now, the thing about it is, law enforcement might try to say that this didn't happen, but then the simple question is, if it didn't happen, then why did you put a government informant in there? Because by now the courts have found out that there was a government informant, and the fact that he was saying these things and he was definitely tipped off. Law enforcement found a way to tip him off, either themselves or told one of his framer sisters to tell him to stop doing what he was doing immediately. And we also know this for a fact, because I can assure the courts that my dad joined about 50 different patriotic groups right after 2011 to show, prove his guilty conscience and the fact that he was doing something illegal, which was encouraging people to go join terror groups in the year 2011 from his house by giving sermons to around 50 people every single night, till it basically forced the government to send in a government informant over to his house, and the government informant basically stuck out like a sore thumb before everything closed out. Overnight, the circus went out, circus tents are out, circus and noises out, everything out. After that, he never used he never talked about encouraging people to go mass murder innocent human beings ever again. And the only reason I know for a fact that he was tipped off, the only reason I know for a fact that there was a government informant that the courts have found evidence of there being a government informant on the last day before he was tipped off. The courts have found evidence of him being tipped off, either through law enforcement themselves or through one of his framer sisters, clearly showing from facts and evidences that I'm not psychic, due to which I know for a fact that he was tipped off, and that there was obviously a circus going on in his house where 50 people were called over to his house every single night to be given sermons on joining terror groups and committing mass murder. This is basically an example of something that is illegal that is to be done, that is done basically because it's an act. Encouraging people to go join terror groups is an act. Encouraging people to commit mass murder is an act. Doing all of these things are basically an act. Yeah. So basically, it is an act and it is illegal. It is not something that should or can be done. It is also very different from when a person says something around a child. Now, the thing is, the talking point that they want to give someone like Junaid is going to be that someone might have said something. That someone, by the way, is going to be either Uncle Joey or one of law enforcement's other BFFs who run sex schemes and money fraud for law enforcement, have been doing so for years and years. And the sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws basically started in the year 2001. Okay, and they're ongoing right now as we speak. And the money fraud basically only stopped about 2 months ago. So basically, yeah, and I can guarantee the courts also that the person that law enforcement were running their money fraud with is begging to start giving money again. There are two main reasons why. The first reason obviously is the fact that they know for a fact that as soon as the case is done and they see that the case is about to close, this person knows for a fact that they're going to go and run unemployment disability fraud again, and that the government is going to, the law enforcement is going to turn a blind eye to it, and that money is basically going to go to that same person in law enforcement overseas who fabricated a group chat false testimony against me, and then recently on July 11th was found fabricating numerous false testimonies against me with Adamji and Marouk. That same person is the person that the money from the unemployment disability fraud goes to from law enforcement's own team, clearly showing from facts and evidences that that person is definitely a part of law enforcement's team. And law enforcement would have given his contact info, like cell phone number, contact info, bank account number, all of these things to this person whom they are committing this fraud with. Yeah. Also, this is also the person that Farrah the Greedy Framer basically found out that he was not as rich as he claimed he was, and made the false testimony against him, an exaggerated false testimony against him, where Farrah the Greedy Framer claimed in that country at that time that letting U.S. law enforcement into your country is against your own country's national security because these men are literally raping and murdering your woman. And she made such a big deal and gave such a scathing police report that every single news agency in that country at that time was against U.S. law enforcement. And U.S. law enforcement, by the way, in general, was almost kicked out of that country. It was almost kicked out of the country of Pakistan due to one person, Farrah the Greedy Framer, telling people in that country at that time, saying that it's a national security risk for you people to be letting U.S. law enforcement into your country because U.S. law enforcement is raping and murdering your woman. And she made such a scathing police report against U.S. law enforcement that the entire U.S. law enforcement, by the way, was almost kicked out of the country of Pakistan in 2019 because of one woman, and that was Farrah the Greedy Framer, clearly showing from facts and evidences how good she is at making false testimonies, exaggerated testimonies against people based on national security concerns, and how good she is at exaggerating false testimonies. Now, you have to understand the fact that Farrah the Greedy Framer has proven her worth in being able to fabricate false testimonies and exaggerated testimonies, not only in 2019 against U.S. law enforcement, ironically against the same people whom she's claiming right now are patriotic and good men. Whether they are patriotic and good or not is a separate issue, but it clearly proves the fact that Farrah the Greedy Framer exaggerated that false testimony, because they were definitely not rapists and murderers that she claimed they were, and definitely not people that she claimed they were in the scathing police report when it was in her best interest to be against them. She raised the same national security issue against them that she has proven on November 20th that she is an expert at raising, where on November 20th, we know for a fact she was involved in November 20th because as soon as a government informant was announced, she was the first person to be kicked out of the spokesperson stand. So on November 20th, Farrah the Greedy Framer proved to the entire world how good she is at claiming national security risk against a person, where on November 20th, she fabricated a false testimony against me where the crime and setting did not even exist. And like how she did in Pakistan in 2019, in this country on November 20th, 2025, every single news agency could not smile on live TV for days after November 20th. And I remember seeing Governor Josh Green on November 27th, 2025, where he goes, "Confusion is the enemy." We have to remove the confusion from here. We have to get to the bottom of this. Is the panic that Farrah the Greedy Framer had created in this country on right after November 20th, 2025. So it's no wonder and it's no secret that in 2019, the same people that Farrah the Greedy Framer is now claiming to be patriotic and good men were a national security risk in Pakistan. And there was such a national security risk in Pakistan in 2019 that the government over there was almost forced to kick out the entire U.S. law enforcement from their country at that time. You have to remember, one person, Farrah the Greedy Framer, almost got all of U.S. law enforcement kicked out of the country of Pakistan by making a scathing police report claiming that letting people from U.S. law enforcement into your country is against your national security risk at this time in 2019. Go check the records because they are raping and murdering your woman. And the entire news agency in that country was against U.S. law enforcement at that time. And U.S. law enforcement at that time, by the way, was almost kicked out of the country of Pakistan. If you don't believe me, go read the scathing police report she made against this same U.S. law enforcement team that she now claims is patriotic and good men. And that same person in U.S. law enforcement who gets the monthly money every month that the government literally stopped 2 months ago is the same person that she made the scathing police report against. What she doesn't mention in that police report is the fact that she was sleeping with this man every single day before she found out that this guy was not as rich as he claimed he was, mainly because his own friends told Farrah the Greedy Framer that this man is not as rich as he claims he is. He's not worth that much. And so Farrah the Greedy Framer felt like she was scammed. And when she felt like she was scammed, guess who she used in order to get revenge? The entire country and their national security risk problem, where she claimed in 2019 that it was a national security risk to be letting U.S. law enforcement into their country because U.S. law enforcement were basically raping and murdering their woman. Not saying that the person that she was claiming this against, she was sleeping with for years before claiming this against that person suddenly after waking up one morning. So yeah, that is Farrah the Greedy Framer and her expertise in making these false testimonies against people. Right now, Farrah the Greedy Framer has basically made at least 4 false testimonies against me. November 20th, 2025, which we know she was involved in due to the fact that the government informant, as soon as it was announced, she was kicked out of the spokesperson stand. Early January 2026, she made more false testimonies against me, and due to which she was basically found to have lied again due to her own Framer sister, Ibrahim's envious mother, letting the government informant know that these were lies that she wanted help with from before November 20th. So the courts knew that early January 2026, what Farrah the Greedy Framer was claiming were basically lies. Then early April 2026 were the third set of lies that Farrah the Greedy Framer made against me, only for the phone conversations to be retrieved, and the facts and evidences from the phone conversations proved that that one was also completely false, not one true statement in there. And then the fourth time Farrah the Greedy Framer was given a chance right now, Ibrahim the Greedy Framer was trying very desperately to try to make more false testimonies and lies against me before the courts literally told him that he was banned, at which time he sent me the same brother by your side thing on July 28th, along with $22.5 million blackmail price tags. Yeah, letting me know that obviously he was found out for his fourth lie that Farrah the Greedy Framer was about to push very aggressively. And right now, as we speak, Farrah the Greedy Framer is sending me requests for me to marry not one, but 2 of her daughters. Her abnormal looking ugly daughter, Zara, and also her divorced daughter, Ifra. And I'm supposed to be marrying her daughters by force and signing these prenup agreement that she sent me requests for 70 prenup blackmail. She's basically sent me 70 requests, more than 70 actually, since just June 19, 2025. Since just last month, the psycho woman just won't let me go for her daughters, which I've told her I'm not interested in your abnormal looking ugly daughters. So basically, the reason that I'm making this video right now is to let the courts know the difference between something that is done and something that is said. So what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011 was obviously he was encouraging people to join terror groups and he was obviously tipped off. The evidence for him being tipped off is going to be there. The evidence for a government informant being involved is going to be there. The evidence is also going to show that obviously I'm not psychic, due to which I knew that he was tipped off. There was definitely a circus due to which the government informant had to be involved, due to which he had to be tipped off. And the only reason I know he was tipped off was because the circus was suddenly gone out of his house. And the guilty conscience for my dad, the greedy framer, is going to be shown to the courts by the fact that he became incredibly patriotic right after 2011. He joined 50 different patriotic groups in Ireland right after 2011, which he never did before. Clearly showing from facts and evidences that if a person like that suddenly changes overnight and circus is gone, due to which I know he was definitely tipped off. There was a government informant right before he was tipped off, then definitely he was doing something really bad, because of which he was, even after 2011, suddenly joining patriotic groups to try to show the people that were watching him that he was an incredibly patriotic individual. It's clearly showing that definitely before 2011 he was encouraging people to join terror groups and mass murder innocent human beings, and probably Ireland itself, due to which he, after 2011, he suddenly changed all of a sudden one day. So that is something that is being done. Now, the difference between that and something that is said is where if I am being adult supervised as a child after I'm 11 years old, well, since I was an 11-year-old child when the war started in 2001, if I am being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey or someone else that law enforcement runs their sex schemes or money fraud with, money fraud, by the way, which only stopped about 2 months ago, then that would only be saying and not doing, since nothing that that person is saying is encouraging anyone to go join terror groups, is funding anything illegal, like how Ibrahim the Greedy Framer has been funding cartels by buying crystal methamphetamine every single day, that displaces people in South America, gets them tortured and a lot of them murdered in South America due to cartel violence that he promotes by buying crystal methamphetamine, and then trying to force me to marry, sign a prenup agreement for his ugly looking sister who's too young for me and way too ugly for me to want to marry. He knows this, due to which it's obvious a Ponzi scheme that Ibrahim was trying on July 18th, just recently. Just a couple of days ago, only as a Ponzi scheme, because June 24th was overanalyzed, finding out that I am Kim Peek Rain Man, or else I would not know what the report says every single time. Yeah, so basically, yeah, what this video I'm making is mainly about is the fact that there's a huge difference between something that is said and something that is done. So basically, my dad, the Greedy Framer, in the year 2011 was doing something because he was encouraging people to go join terror groups, 50 people in his sermons every single day. How many joined terror groups, we don't know. How many were going back and forth from terror groups, we don't know. The effect of his sermons, from how long he'd been given it, we don't know, because law enforcement didn't handle it like how they handled November 20th, which was handled the right way, by the way. November 20th, they put in government informant. They found out November 20th was being fabricated by my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters. The motive obviously was money. They didn't want my brain savant money going to my mother. If it's not going to them, we know this for a fact because he tries to sell me his own sisters in exchange for illegal assurance of money that he sends me price tag blackmails for, even after he's told that this is an open advertisement for incest. On February 11th, 3:17 a.m., he's still trying it March 7th for one sister, and then March 10th for the other one, and every single day afterwards. So basically, we knew what the motives were for November 20th before even it was even fabricated, due to which my dad, the Greedy Framer, had absolutely no shame going after money in any way, shape, or form possible, sending me blackmail price tags and then asking me to commit incest with two of his sisters, big fat ugly old sisters. So basically, yeah, November 20th was handled excellently, due to which my dad, the Greedy Framer, even after he was due to which my dad, the Greedy Framer, after he had begged his Framer sisters to make the fabricated false testimony against me, not only did he give away his motive of money, he shamelessly went out after it, clearly showing to the courts that he knew that there was huge amounts of money involved, that artificial intelligence predicted from my brain savant potential, due to which he was willing to do things that would literally be on the same line as shaving off his beard that he's grown for the past 50 years that's supposed to be a sign of being religious, he's literally shaving off his beard that he's grown for the past 50 years by not just trying to get me to commit incest with his Framer sisters on February 11th at 3:17 a.m., but then trying again on March 7th 3 times, and then trying shamelessly with a different sister on March 10th by sending sexually explicit pictures of his sister Afreen, the big fat ugly old predator, on March 10th, every single day afterwards, of a woman resembling Afreen every single day after March 10th and March 10th, as well as Farrah the Greedy Framer on March 7th, despite him being told on February 11th that this is an open advertisement for incest. He didn't care. He was literally shaving off his beard that he's grown for the past 50 years only because he knew how much money was involved. He didn't want it to all go to my mother. He knew the kind of lies that he was caught with. He knew I knew because of just seeing people's faces on CNN. So basically, yeah. My dad, the Greedy Framer, has basically, he has shown the courts exactly what it means to be doing something illegal, basically using national security for your own personal agenda of locking up my brain savant so my mother cannot get the money that he cannot get. He showed it very clearly on November 20th, and I think the government handled it excellently. Now, this is how 2011 was supposed to be handled, but it was not, due to which my dad, the Greedy Framer, basically got away with literally murder. So my point being, there's a big difference between something that is said and something that is done. In 2011, something was done because he was recruiting people, encouraging them to go join terror groups and commit mass murder. Literally 50 people every single night he was doing in the year 2011, whereas when I was a child, around 11 years old, and I was being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, or the people that law enforcement basically run their, sex schemes and money fraud with, that was only saying, and that wasn't doing anything. Since no one was encouraged to join terror groups, no one was given sermons to go do so, not one person was harmed due to the words that anyone could have said around me, anyone being law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey or the other people that law enforcement run their sex schemes and money fraud with and have been doing so for decades. No one would have been harmed because of and due to those words at all. Whereas in 2011, you know for a fact, most people know for a fact that people were being encouraged, and how many people are literally mass murdered, we do not even know. So basically, when I was being adult supervised as an 11-year-old child, or shortly afterwards, nothing that one of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey or the other ones that they run their sex schemes and money fraud with could have said would have harmed or hurted or affected anyone's life whatsoever. And the other thing has to be remembered is the fact that my mother had already gotten permission from law enforcement, letting them know that she was a single mother who had to leave me behind, continue leaving me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free while she worked at fast food restaurants or factories at nighttime, and that this would continue till I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, which she also repeated on the night of February 15, 8:30 p.m., saying that she was basically scared that I would run out of the door alone if she would leave me at home alone when she went to go work. So it clearly shows from facts and evidences that this was when I was a child being left behind by one of law enforcement's own BFFs to adult supervise me. It was due to the force and necessity of my single mother. She had already taken permission from law enforcement for me to be there in the first place. It was only temporarily daily, only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, never again after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And we know for a fact it wasn't due to me being tipped off, because if I was tipped off, then everyone else would have been tipped off. And you know how a guilty person's conscience is like from the year 2011 with my dad, the Greedy Framer. The entire circus disappears overnight, and the person becomes the most patriotic individual in the country, despite there being no evidence of such behavior before the year 2011 for my dad, the Greedy Framer. Even if someone was saying something, even remotely considered bad around me as a child, one of law enforcement's own BFFs, obviously, they would have changed overnight as well if I was being tipped off and if I tipped anyone else off, obviously. But the facts and evidences show that it wasn't me tipping anyone off, but it was law enforcement who literally tipped everyone off. And we know this for a fact due to the fact that the money fraud literally only stopped about 2 months ago, and the sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws are still ongoing right now as we speak. So basically, yeah. And so, yeah, that just shows you the force and necessity of a single mother, and how she'd already gotten permission from law enforcement, how she'd already gotten permission from law enforcement before I was put there to be adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, only temporarily, daily, only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Never again after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and it wasn't me being tipped off, due to which my mother no longer let me go to and settings where without her anymore, but due to her promise being fulfilled that she had already made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child. And we know this from facts and evidences, due to the fact that if I was tipped off, I would have tipped other people off, but it wasn't me. It was law enforcement who basically tipped everyone off, and we know this from the money fraud that was just stopped literally 2 months ago, and the sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws that are ongoing right now as we speak, clearly showing from facts and evidences that it was law enforcement who went around tipping everyone off, including my dad, the greedy framer. Us said after the wedding incident, every single person that law enforcement knew and was BFS with, and is so right now as we speak. So yeah, this clearly shows from facts and evidence is exactly what the difference between doing something and saying something are. Whereas right after I was an 11-year-old child, it was only saying something, whereas in 2011 is a great example of what doing something really is, with my dad, the greedy framer. The court, you have to realize the fact that Junaid has basically been given these talking points by law enforcement to try to be able to use them against me, when in fact Junaid is only doing this while at the same time begging me all day night long to help him scam these people's vulnerable daughters into first sleeping with me and then passing them around to people like Junaid. Yeah, basically that is what is going on, and he is being given these talking points while at the same time he's enviously taking the girls' contact numbers and basically contacting them and begging them all day night long to sleep with him. Right now, after this video, I'm going to put in a 10-minute video about how today is July 31st, Friday, July 31st, and even today he got badly rejected by a girl that he was trying to enviously stalk through law enforcement. And I woke up this morning with the sound of a large trash can hitting the ground really hard, and I knew right away that Junaid was rejected really brutally again. You have to understand the fact that Junaid never knew who these girls were. He became extremely envious at the fact that there were these girls who liked me. And what Junaid ended up doing was he got their contact info from law enforcement, and then he started to enviously stalk them and started to call them, and then he would make up stories about him being a CEO, when in reality he was working the same job as my sister, earning the exact same amount of money. The only difference was he would get into fights at work every single day, due to which he was losing his job every single year. The girls found out that he wasn't a CEO and this reality about him, due to which what Junaid ended up doing was he quickly called the girls and started telling them the entire truth and the entire story, mainly because Junaid was scared that the same person in law enforcement who told the girls the truth about him not being a CEO would tell the girls that he's getting into fights at work every single day, he earns the same amount of money as my sister, and that he does the exact same job as my sister, and that he loses his job every year, and that he probably he's trying to get an early retirement every single year, with this year 2026 being a confirmed case of an early retirement. Yeah, he was basically scared that same person in law enforcement would go and tell these girls that before he would. So what he ended up doing was he ended up calling the girls and basically telling them everything before this person in law enforcement would do so. And what that ended up doing was, obviously the girls no longer talk to him anymore, and so now what he tried to do was enviously lock up my brother and Savant using the same last talking point that law enforcement has after all of their false testimonies have all been caught, and there's no more room for false testimonies anymore. He's taking a talking point from when I was a child and trying to use that against me, and basically trying to use that against me and exaggerating it, despite him not even being there when I was a child. Now, the thing that you have to remember is, regardless of what anyone could have said around me when I was a child, since I was only about 11-year-old child when the war occurred, nothing that anyone could have said could have damaged anyone's property, committed vandalism, hurted a single person, harmed anyone, and it would have been law enforcement's own BFFs, like people like Uncle Joey, whom I've literally never seen again after I was a child due to him being caught with really dirty chat online one time. But yeah, nothing that anyone could have said could have either harmed anyone, committed vandalism, or hurted a single person, done anything illegal or harmful on a single soul or person at all. Whereas what Junaid has been doing by him breaking the bottom part of my car after May 25th, 2026, committed vandalism. Breaking my Fire Stick for my TV, that was vandalism. Breaking the charging outlet, vandalism. While begging me all day and night long to go scam other people's vulnerable daughters into sleeping with me first and then passing them around to people like Junaid, who are basically scam artists and liars. And we now know who the sex predators were from the start. Not me, but law enforcement. We now know who the liars were. Not me, law enforcement. So now a lot of the truth has basically come out. Yeah, but Junaid has to understand the fact that there's a difference between something that is done and something that is said. Nothing that could have been said around me as a child would have affected anyone in any way, shape, or form, hurted anyone, harmed anyone. It would have been law enforcement's own BFF saying it. And what Junaid has been doing with breaking my car after May 25th, 2026, he got rejected by one of my elementary school teachers, literally had the police call on him by her son, who was only about 2 years younger than me. He was rejected by all these other girls that he was enviously running after, only because they found out about my brain savant and they were coming after me, and he became extremely envious and he started running after them. Yeah, so basically that is basically doing when you're committing vandalism, breaking someone's car, their Fire Stick for their TV, charging outlet, that is doing and not saying. So basically he has absolutely no excuse for doing this. He didn't pay for my car, didn't do anything of that sort of nature. Right now my sister only pays for my cell phone bill, which is about $25 a month, and that's from her house budget, and that's in exchange for me picking and dropping my mother off every single week, so I don't have to take money for gas from her. But yeah, it has nothing to do with anything, and what he has done is doing and not saying. What anyone could have done, said around me as a child, one of law enforcement's own BFFs would have only been saying and not doing. Not illegal, not committing vandalism, not hurting anyone, not doing anything to anyone in any way, shape, or form, whereas what Junaid has been doing has been vandalism. He's been hurting me, threatening me all day and night long. So he has to understand the difference between a crime being committed, someone being threatened, someone having vandalism committed against them, and no crime being committed, no one being hurt, no one being harmed, nothing of that sort of nature. Big difference between the two, and Junaid has to understand that. And the other thing that you have to know is today's July 31st, and even today he's gotten rejected very brutally, and I'm going to put a 10-minute video on there right after this video to show you exactly how badly he was rejected again today, but chasing after one of the girls enviously after getting their contact info from law enforcement, and then getting rejected by her again today, July 31st. So I'm going to put that video right after this one. Okay, thank you.